G'day, thanks for joining this session. My name is Ashwin. I'm a cybersecurity evangelist at Checkpoint. In this session, I will discuss a cloud security misconception, as well as share with you a story of how attackers are fooling business executives and stealing millions of dollars. Now, when you transition to the cloud, it is imperative that you understand the shared responsibility model, which states that you, as the customer, are responsible for your application, your data, and the virtual machines that you spin up. And now this changes somewhat depending on what type of cloud service you consume. But the important point is here is that you, as the consumer, have some security responsibility. The shared responsibility model also states that that cloud providers are responsible for securing the infrastructure on which the cloud is built on. Now, with that said, let's focus on Microsoft Azure, which is the second largest cloud infrastructure in the world with millions of users. And here are just some of the big names that are using Microsoft Azure. Now, how is the cloud being used? You, as a company, can carry out your business process by shifting your data to the cloud. Different businesses will move different types of data. For example, a hospital can store and process medical records in the cloud. A bank can store and process financial transactions in the cloud. It doesn't actually matter what business you are in. The point is that you can move your data and carry out your business process in the public cloud infrastructure. Now, one of the things that you can do with your business process is split it up into smaller pieces. We refer to this architecture as serverless. Now, this doesn't mean that there are no servers. It just means that the cloud provider is now responsible for the service. So you can focus on your business process. You can, so these small pieces of code is what we refer to as workloads. So workloads could be either serverless functions or containers in the cloud. Now, what happens in the cloud environment is that your workloads are spread around. This gives you the benefit of flexibility, scalability, and redundancy, and so on. And this is a very nice architecture, and it's controlled by the cloud provider without much intervention from you. So you can choose to, when you choose to work in the public cloud using serverless and container architecture. Now, let's just focus on one of these clouds. When you deploy an application or a business process within these clouds, Microsoft doesn't actually assign you a dedicated machine under the hood. This would not be very cost effective for them, right? From a cost point of view. Now, what they do is they share the platform under the hood, and what this means is that apart from your workloads, the workloads of other organizations are deployed on the same machine. So we are talking about a multi-tenant environment. Now, for this magic to happen, there must be some level of isolation. Each workload must be isolated from the others. Otherwise, we would have a major catastrophe. So a workload must not be able to see, read, edit, delete another workload. Each workload must be completely invisible to another because they're from different tenants, from different users. Otherwise, we have a problem. Now, this isolation is the responsibility of the cloud provider. And this is exactly where we focused our attention and our research. We registered our cloud service or our malicious cloud service for a cloud service, and we sent our malicious workload that would try to escape from this isolation and run on a higher level of privilege in the cloud. And that's exactly what we were able to do. Our malicious workload was able to escape from this isolation. And what this means is that all the workloads were now visible to us and under our control. We could see, do whatever we wanted with any of the workloads from any of the tenants. We could read, edit, delete workloads from any organization within this cloud. I hope you're starting to see that this is a major cloud catastrophe. We took a vulnerability and we used it against one of the major cloud providers. Now, like all other vulnerabilities that we discover, we always report them to the vendor in question, and we give them time to address it before we make our findings public. And this case was no different. We notified Microsoft, and they started working on a fix. Now, it took them around 8 months to fix this because it was such a complex problem. We are the first cybersecurity team to have ever found a vulnerability in the public cloud infrastructure like this. So you might think that if you go to the public cloud, vulnerabilities can be fixed quickly, but that's not the case, because this is not like a vulnerability in your operating system. This vulnerability is in the cloud infrastructure itself, and it's extremely difficult to address. And we can see that with the response time from Microsoft. Right? They did a very professional job, by the way, and this vulnerability does not exist anymore. But I hope you understand that other vulnerabilities may exist, and there is nothing you can do about it. There is nothing any of the security vendors can do about it, because this is not something that we can fix. This is something that must be fixed by Microsoft, because or the cloud provider, because this is a vulnerability within the cloud itself. In the second story that I'm going to share with you, this is a story about how cyber criminals are now targeting executives to steal millions of dollars. So cloud applications have experienced a massive growth in the last 2 years, especially the use of Office 365. So let's focus on this one. Now, Checkpoint's incident response team has they started an investigation with this one sentence: "We lost $1 million that were transferred to us from a Chinese VC." Now, sadly, we have investigated many cases like this, and earlier this year, we heard this sentence from an Israeli startup that led us towards investigating the group behind these attacks. And in the following investigation, we unravel the story behind the threat group that we dubbed the Florentine Banker. And we shed light on how these types of sophisticated business email compromise attacks take place. So let's take a look at how this attack is executed step by step. First, the Florentine Banker Group choose their victim and start their phishing campaign against certain individuals. These individuals can be CEOs, CFOs, or any other key individuals within an organization who would be responsible for executing money transfers. In our case, this first phishing campaign targeted only two personnel, unfortunately, one of which provided their credentials. In the second stage, they carry out a reconnaissance by reading the email from the compromised user in order to understand the different channels used to conduct money transfers, as well as the victim's relationship with third parties such as clients, lawyers, accountants, and banks. These guys can spend a few weeks to maybe months carrying out their reconnaissance. After carefully studying their victim's organization, the attackers start to isolate the victims from third parties and internal colleagues by creating malicious mailbox rules. These email rules would divert emails with interesting content or subject into folders that are monitored by the threat group, essentially creating a type of man-in-the-middle attack. So, for example, an email that had words such as invoice or returned or fail, these would be automatically moved into another folder that's not commonly used by the victim. Now, in order to process or to proceed to the next stage of the operation, the attackers register lookalike domains, domains that look visually similar to legitimate domains for domains of the entities that are involved in the email correspondence that they want to intercept. For example, if there's a correspondence between firms, finance-firm.com and banking-service.com, the attacker would register similar domains like finance-firms.com and banking-services.com. And in the fourth stage, they inject themselves into the conversation by sending emails from the lookalike domains. They can either create a new domain, a new email, or they can continue a existing conversation. But since the domain looks so similar to the original domain, neither parties notice it. The next step is for them to steal the money, and by the time this happens, they have high level of control over the firm's inbound email, and they can create legitimate looking emails with other parties that other parties would simply trust. And they do all this. All they do now is they inject new banking details into the party that would be transferring the funds. And the last stage is to use the knowledge that they've gained and find new victims to attack. So to summarize, I've spoken about cloud vulnerabilities. I want you to understand that cloud providers can also be compromised. Now, don't blindly trust emails. If you are conducting financial transactions, always validate using other methods. And we at Checkpoint, by the way, have teams in New Zealand and in Australia. So please contact us to learn how we can help you secure your cloud infrastructure and your applications. Thank you.